Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Get Real with Rick Dancer. We are at Sheltercare, and we're going to have the greatest conversation today. I'm super excited about this show. I'm going to do something really fast to keep you guys from getting in here and taking that off. Okay, so we're at Sheltercare. Sheltercare is an agency. What do you... Introduce yourself and then tell me what do you do? Because I don't want to define it. I want you to be able to define it.
Okay, my name is Janice, and I work in the development department at Sheltercare. And basically, we do a lot of fundraising and community outreach type stuff.
But you guys take people in our community who are a lot of times without homes, may have mental illnesses, some difficulty on the streets. They live on the streets. These guys go out. They have people that go out on the streets and really try to get people into services and get people help. I mean, really, that's what you do.
Yeah.
I mean, they are in camps. They go to places. I mean, where you and I might be afraid to go. Hi, Cindy. They go and they have relationship and friendships with these folks to try to get them into services and stuff. So we're going to talk about an employment program. And you are?
I'm Jessica. I'm the supervisor for our supported employment program.
So tell people what that is.
Okay. So our supported employment program is actually part of our mental health or behavioral health program. So we work with people who are diagnosed with a mental illness, and we basically help them get and keep a competitive job in the community.
So these are folks who other people might not think could be employable.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So they do have mental illnesses?
Yes, everyone has a mental illness. That's actually one of the requirements for being in the program.
So one of the we were talking before this and getting pretty darn excited. Awesome. I would love to help with this. Thank you very much for what you do. Somebody just said on there. Well, you can get a hold of Sheltercare and find out about volunteer opportunities. Thank you for the sensitive subject as I am dealing with this with my family. Yeah. This is the best part.
See? Yeah,
so guys, we're going to talk. If you have a question, let me know, and we can ask them as well. But Jessica, what I want to talk about is one of the hurdles you have in the community is we're learning in our community how to understand and better accept people with disabilities.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. We still don't get it with mental illness.
Yeah.
So we still see them as different. So you have trouble when you go out. A lot of times businesses are a little hesitant to want to do this.
Yeah, I think people have this perception of mental illness, right? They don't quite know what it is. It sounds scary. They don't understand it. So people, I mean, my sense is that people are scared sometimes.
So the thought of bringing someone that is defined as mentally ill into your business puts up a red flag for you.
Yeah.
It says, what's that going to do to my customer base? What do you find, though? I mean, when you bring these people in?
Like when they actually go in and get jobs
when they're actually getting a job and doing their job.
I mean, so it varies, right? Like part of our job is to work with the business and to work with the client to kind of help them try to manage their symptoms, right? So sometimes we have people go in and it works out great. I have a young woman that I was working with. She just got a job at Goodwill full-time. Major anxiety. She has schizophrenia. She actually has voices that she hears while she's at work. She manages her job amazingly. She goes to her supervisor, gets support from her supervisor. She calls me when she gets home. She's totally doing it, right? But then sometimes, I mean, I'll be honest, sometimes we have people who go in and they're just not quite there yet, right? Usually it's anxiety that kind of gets people once they get into the job.
So Janice, why is this so important for Sheltercare and for what you guys do?
Just the supported employment program. Oh, wow, that's a really good question. I would say it's important because, you know, at Sheltercare, a lot of the times what we find is that mental illness and homelessness go hand in hand, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
And a lot of the times people don't think about mental illness in that way that we do. And we want to be able to help people as much as we can in any way we can, because being able to manage your mental illness is really important in being able to find jobs and being a part of the community.
Because I think a lot of people think of Sheltercare as you find shelter for people who need homes and stuff like that, but it's so much more than that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean that's a big deal, and that isn't super important.
Yeah.
But if you as a person are not able to have a job, hold on, I want to go back here and see what somebody said. Do you want to tag Rick Dancer? Yes, I do. If you as a person are trying to get better, and you're trying to fit in as best you can, employment is kind of what we all do.
Yeah,
Right.
it really is.
So when you have someone, I think it scares people when you hear somebody saying, I hear voices in my head. But I have a friend who has schizophrenia, and he hears voices in his head, and we have the most fun with those voices. And I think it's just, we have to take a different look at this, don't we, as a culture?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we kind of have these stereotypes, right, about what that person looks like with the voices in their head. But the reality, like you're saying, is so much different.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do businesses out there, people who might know a business that could benefit? Because what I think sometimes folks we don't understand is, these are folks who could be doing some of the jobs that you're paying people to do that they don't need to be doing. That you could have more important things for them to do, and you're giving vitality and vibrance to a person in their recovery as they're learning to cope and manage with their mental illness.
Yeah, we have a lot of people who really want those types of jobs, right? So they don't want to be out there like on the cash register necessarily. They want to be like, doing those little side jobs. Sorting,
like at Goodwill, I'm thinking sorting, helping to stack things. I remember at Goodwill when I was there one time, there was a gentleman with mental illness, and he was checking the books in.
Right.
Figuring out, here's all these books, and he had great pleasure and value by doing that. And good topic. Thank you, Jessica. We have to talk about mental illness, or because it's not going to go away.
No, it's not. It's getting worse, actually.
I mean, with everything going on right now, here is where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah.
And these people they're just human beings.
Yes, right. And that's the thing, right? Like, it's just like you and I sitting here talking to people. I mean, once you actually sit down and talk to someone with a mental illness, you just see so clearly that we're all the same.
Right.
And mental illness is really a spectrum, right? We were talking about this earlier. Like, right. I feel like I have symptoms of mental illness. Janice does. Rick might.
Right.
So we're all kind of on this spectrum, and some people are a little far one way or another, but we're just all humans,
Right. So the job and employment part of it, though, is so important for their healing.
Yeah.
And I don't mean healing like they're going to get better, because they don't have to get better. I think that's one of the misnomers with mental illness. It's not about getting better. It's about managing your symptoms.
Yeah, it's about managing and being able to function and be part of the community and have meaningful experiences that we all need to feel, like happy, healthy human beings. Even if you still have a mental illness, right? You still want to be connected to people. You still want to be doing meaningful things.
Right.
And,
So when I go down the street and I see folks that are sitting by the road and, hey, Rick, love what you do for the community. I'm not doing it. These guys do the work. I just come here and talk with you guys. The more support and inclusion community will grow.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that drives me crazy is these are human beings who have value.
Yeah.
And when you treat people like they have value, they find their value. So are we part of the problem or part of the solution?
Yeah, and sitting down and talking with someone, once you hear someone's story, I'm all about stories too, that's why I love this work. So you sit down with someone, you're like, oh wow, they have schizophrenia. You listen to their story, you talk to them, and you're like, oh my gosh, I get it.
Right.
You're an amazing person. Let's help you get a job.
I have a really good friend, and he's schizophrenic, and he'll sit there when he's talking, and he'll kind of pause for a minute, and I said, is there another voice in your head right now that's taking away from my time and my conversation? He goes, yeah. And I said, are they more interested than me? And he goes, kinda. And it is so much fun, because I learned so much about going, I have voices in my head, but I feel like that's normal.
Yes.
And maybe they understand more than we do.
Yes.
I've always felt that way about people with autism on the spectrum is, what if they're doing it right and we're the ones who really need to be educated?
Yes, we pretend like we don't have these experiences, right? It's so weird.
Yeah. It is crazy. So what should people know when they see people in your program? If you're bringing somebody into their business, which is what you want to do, this is, one, productive for them. Normal is only a setting on a dryer.
I like that.
My son is autistic and very wise. Annie, I bet he is. Yes, autism is awesome. I like to hear people starting to talk like that, because autism is awesome. And you find some of the most amazing people. And so what bothers me about how we treat some of the mental illnesses that we see on the street is, those could be people, if they could help manage and a little bit of change, they could be people that really know some things we need to know.
Yeah,
And we're letting them just kind of falter.
Right, and that's kind of the perspective when we go into a business, right? It's like, okay, what do you need? What do we need? How can we kind of tweak things to make this work? I think that's the biggest thing we need from businesses sometimes, is like, we really think this could work and this person has a lot of value and can offer you a lot, but we just might need to make some sort of like adjustments, but we're all willing to do that.
Right.
So it's like that willingness
Right.
to do that.
My son is, yes, Auto. Okay, so if you guys know somebody in the business community or you have a business, encourage them to do this, because it's really easy. I mean, you guys kind of know, one of my mantras on our show with Get Real Rick Dancer is that if you feel bad, great. I don't really care. If you do something about that bad feeling, then that's what we're looking for, because love is an action word. Concern is an action word. It's really easy to just be sorry. I'm sorry, and then you go away and you don't do anything about it, and that doesn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think to be active and participate, and you guys have lots of ways that people can participate at Sheltercare.
Oh, yeah.
In volunteer positions and things like that.
Right, yeah, and we're working on opening up a lot more volunteer positions. So if they just go to our website, sheltercare.org, they can see what's available, and there's more coming.
I think what people don't think about too in supporting Sheltercare is being like an advocate in the community, right? So having these kinds of conversations with people, you know, with your friends, with your family and stuff, that's a way you can really help as well.
So as somebody who deals with this on a daily basis, what would you, if you could say, what would you say? What would you tell people? You're the expert on this.
I'm the expert.
And fundraisers, zombies unite. Jessica said that. Oh, you know. Yeah, you know the zombies. And that is true, is to find, I also love how you guys work with St. Vincent de Paul and other agencies in town, because you all have your niche and you have your thing. But what would you tell, oh
gosh. So for me, the biggest thing is like, it sounds so corny, but I mean, being compassionate and being open and seeing someone as another human, right? So just being willing to be open-minded about people and to get into a dialogue and to get to know people and to really understand where people are coming from.
Right.
You know, so you can see them as the same instead of this other.
The Trauma Healing Project is a great place for those who have mental illness to find resources. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Okay, what did you... That's not what you guys, is it something else?
No, it's something else.
Well, that's good, but that's good information.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, my wife and I were walking outside downtown the other day, and this guy comes up, and he had a mental illness, you could tell, and he's coming up, and he's going, hey, give me a piece of your pizza. And I'm going, you can't have my pizza. And he's going, no, come on, man, give me a piece of your Rick Dancer, give me a piece of your pizza. I said, you don't get my pizza, man. And I'm doing this, and we got in the car, and my wife looks at me, and she goes, you are so good at that, because you just don't have any fear of that.
Yeah.
And I don't, because I think there's too many people I've run into. I was running the other day, this guy was sitting there, his name was Steve, and I get to my stopping point, and he's sitting there looking at the sun. He goes, do you know how many ways the sun looks different every day? And I thought, no, I never really thought about that. And is obviously had a little bit of a mental illness. And then he goes, I said, my name's Rick, and I reached my hand out, and he kind of looked at me funny, and I kept pushing it out, and then he shook my hand, and he just stood there, and I said, it was nice talking to you. He goes, it's Rick, right? I go, yeah. And I walked away. It's so easy to do.
Treating someone like another human.
Asking questions, starting a conversation, because if it gets uncomfortable with someone with a mental illness and they I've had people start to yell and do stuff like that, and I just go, okay, well, we'll see you later, and I walk away. But I still engage with it.
Yeah.
And that's really the early step that we can all take.
Yeah.
And it's what you guys at Sheltercare do all the time, which I totally respect about your agency. And you have people that are tough.
Yeah.
And like their hearts are like soft, but they've got this hard exterior.
Right.
Because
They
they've
can do
had
it.
to, right? I mean, that's the thing we forget, too. Like, people have been living on the streets. People have had to put up these defenses to protect themselves and get their needs met.
Right.
That's all they have.
Right. And I think an important thing to note is that the people in the supported employment program are people who are working really hard to better themselves. And they have come a long way. And providing them with some sort of employment is what would make their story even greater and make them feel even better about themselves, because really that's what having a happy society is all about, right? Is about having people who feel good about themselves. So
and exactly, Annie says, and right now I think we should all be really paying close attention to mentally ill, the subject of mental illness, and taking it seriously.
Yeah.
and if you can't answer this, you can just tell me, because
Okay.
everybody will be fine.
Okay.
But does it ever drive you crazy when we see what happens in our country right now, and we just will not have that discussion?
Oh, absolutely.
God, just
Yeah. I mean, how could it not? It's also preventable. That's the thing that's really...
talk more. What?
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm like, come on. I'm loving this. Okay, so hold on. I want to answer you guys this. Seems to me to be a problem. Women is a whole different issue. Oh, Donald, I don't know what you're talking about. In such a special place, Kelly, ask for Don maybe. You're so welcome. Okay, so go ahead with your thing.
Well, I mean, we're really talking about access to services, right? So if people have access to what they need, if they have access to mental health care, if they have access to any medical care they need that's related to mental health, I mean, we have this whole range of therapy and practices that have been proven to actually help people with so many of these problems with anxiety, depression, bullying, all this stuff. It's all out there, right? People don't have access to it for whatever reason. I mean, sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's exposure. They live in communities where it's, maybe there's some sort of stigma against accessing help. So that's the sad part, actually.
Because the treatment is out there.
Yeah, it's out there, but people are prevented from getting it. I mean, a lot of this has to do with cost, right?
Right.
And who, insurance companies being willing to cover certain services, and I mean, it's unfortunate. But...
So if you don't qualify with a mental illness, you can't get services.
Yeah, if you don't, I mean, so there's like a different criteria depending on where you go. But for example, here at Sheltercare, you have to, meet a certain diagnostic criteria of a serious mental illness before you can get services here.
And that's not something you come up with. That's something the government or somebody.
Insurance companies.
Oh. See, we're learning something here. Okay, so then you got people falling through the cracks, and we wonder why we have things going on in our community like that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And
Sorry.
for those people who fall through the cracks, we actually started this blog series on our website, which is like a how-to blog series, right? And we just posted an article about, how to prepare for a job interview, which is pretty cool. But it's specifically targeting people who may be homeless or may have mental illness. So it's kind of helping those people and providing them with the resources that Jessica might provide to her clients, except this is on the website, and it's something that people can go and look at whether or not they're in the Sheltercare program.
That is awesome. So what is your website? How do they get on that?
It's just www.sheltercare.org.
Okay, so there are questions on there. There's stuff for people that may have difficulty with that, because a lot of people on the spectrum, we think differently, so we go about life differently than that. So you don't know why you're not coming across the same way as everybody else, because you see the world in a different way.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with that when you don't know that that's even an issue?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 58 years old, and I realize that there's sometimes I do stuff and I go, I do not understand why people do that.
Yeah.
And my wife just says, well, that's because you see the world in this kind of idealistic way. And she goes, but Rick, I see very black and white in some way. There's a lot of gray in there, but it's just an interesting dynamic to then try to see the world the same way.
Yeah.
It's just not like it. And I think all of us are somewhat like that, but some people are a little more aware of it.
Yeah.
So what if the people who are labeled mentally ill are more aware of life than the rest of us?
That's a question that those of us in the field ask all the time. Like 20 years from now, are we going to find out that people who hear voices and stuff are actually have some higher level of consciousness, or they're picking up on something you and I aren't?
Oh, yeah.
Like, who knows?
Yeah.
Because they'll say, this friend of mine, we sat downtown one day, and I keep going, John, I really like you. You're just a cool guy. And he's going, you're very weird. And I'm like, well, I know I'm weird. He goes, no, but he goes, you keep telling me that. And I said, it's because you challenge me to think in a different way, and to see the world in a different way. Thank you, you guys, at Sheltercare, and thank you, Rick, for bringing so much awareness to this. Insurance companies, unfortunately, are something. Okay, that's right, Quinn. So again, what we're looking for, one, is just to have the conversation that we just did. So you guys share this on your page so other people can kind of start talking about mental illness as if it's not the scariest thing on the planet. It's very normal. But if we don't do something about it and make people with different mental illnesses feel like they're part of our community and can get the help that they need, it's just going to continue to get worse. The employment program at Sheltercare, what a godsend for people who can qualify. But what we need to make that work is people to not just feel bad, but businesses to step up and say, call and find out what can they do. Because I know from other agencies that do this, not the same thing you do, but do this with developmental disability people, they will find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
You go in there and you're going to go, okay, if you will consider taking on June, the woman or the man, whatever, then you will find a way to make that work.
Yeah, we're really committed to that. So just having people who are willing to work with us is the challenge.
But the fact is, and we're not whining, but the fact is you do not have enough people that will.
No.
I mean, that's fair. We're not being mean. We're just saying, we understand some people's fear.
Sure.
But fear is only there to stifle you from. You could bring in, I'll tell you what, Ninkasi did this with a friend of mine who has a disability, and Rick went into their agency. I did a video on it so I can use his name. And Rick went in there and changed the way they thought about people like Rick.
Wow.
Because all of a sudden, he was really into cleaning up the cigarette butts around the place. And every single one, where the employee they had doing it just, kind of went through and did. That wasn't their real job.
Yeah.
And so Rick went in there and he was serious. He was committed, and he was going to get every cigarette butt and all that. And they said they learned a whole bunch of stuff about themselves and about people with different abilities.
Yeah.
That was amazing. So if you want to, if you see the headlines and you're tired of culture not dealing with mental illness, then step up. Here's your chance to kind of learn something about it.
Yeah. I love that you said different abilities, because that's really what it is,
It
right?
is. It's not. I hate the term disabilities.
Yeah.
I hate it. I hate a lot of the intellectual disability stuff we use, and I understand people have to have labels in the industry, but I don't have to.
Yeah.
So it's we have different people with different abilities, and most of them are my friends, and most of them can do more than I can do. And Amelia, this friend of mine, she experiences Down syndrome, and she will just, no, I'm not doing that, Rick. And I'm learning that now when I have clients and I don't want, no, I'm not doing that. This is Amelia coming out in me.
Yeah. She has better boundaries,
She
right?
has way better boundaries than I ever do. I agree, Quentin. What did Quentin say? We need to know what Quentin said in here. Hold on. Quentin says, you're talking about insurance companies. Well, I'm going to let you just go ahead and talk about that. So anything else we need to let people know?
Just that we're here, and we really appreciate being able to work with businesses. And if you have people who have a mental illness, who aren't getting services, a fairly serious mental illness, please refer them to Sheltercare. We don't have a waiting list right now for our mental health services, and we're ready to help people.
And if you are one of those people who is always considering and thinking, where do I want to, if I want to give $25 this month, or I want to give $100, or I get a tax return and I want to do something with it, if you like what you saw here today, Sheltercare is a great place where it's going to be hitting the rub. This is like the rubber on the road. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what I really like that. When you're going and don't, and here's the thing too. You can donate things. They take things for houses and stuff like that, and that's really helpful and stuff. But your money, honestly, they can spend your money better than you can when it comes to this stuff, because you have people, you have contacts,
right,
and you know how to spend it and stuff.
Right. We have contacts that make things a lot cheaper for us than it would for somebody in the public.
And let me bring up one more thing. We did a story with Sheltercare on this woman who she didn't know what to do, and she was pulling up to stop signs and seeing homeless people, and she was looking away because she was embarrassed, and she didn't like that. So she started her own program. No government funding, no grants, no dollars. She went to her friends and said, give me $10. She goes out and buys Subway gift cards, brings them to Sheltercare, and because she doesn't know who to give them to. She doesn't know who needs them and who doesn't. So she gives them to them. When they have a family come in, you guys give them a card. I love that. Mm-hmm. She didn't have to go to the city council and get a blessing. She didn't have to do anything. She just had to go to her friends and say, give me $10, and she raises a bunch of money. And she goes out and does this. And I said, who are you? And she goes, I'm just a woman. I go, no, you're like an angel.
Right.
But you could do that. Anybody out there can do that.
Mm-hmm. We got lots of gift cards over the Christmas season from her. And we distributed a lot of those to our outreach team, who go out and give those to people who are living on the streets.
So you can. There's things you can do, you guys. You don't have to feel like your hands are tied and you can't do that. So Thank you both.
Yeah,
One,
thank
for what you
you.
do, and two, for having this conversation. Great idea. It wasn't mine, Annie. It was this this little angel lady that we did a show on about a couple months ago. She was awesome. So in closing this show off, I'm going to tell you, so we got, you have anything more you want to say?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I just make weird faces.
Okay. We have a very sad thing, and I'm not taking up your show. I think it relates. We have a young girl from Willamette High School who took her life yesterday. And she was being bullied and treated poorly. And so tomorrow night at 5 o'clock, we're going to have a special show with her mother at her home to talk about the bullying, to talk about what was going on. It will probably be a pretty rough and raw show. But we can't keep doing this. We can't keep treating people this way. So we're going to go talk to her and find out what's going on and what happened and all that kind of stuff. So that's about as real as it gets. And I didn't call her. I had friends call me, so I wasn't being a news guy and being a sleaze bucket and trying to get the mom. But they talked on the phone with her, and she agreed she wants to talk about this. So she wants to do it at her home, and that's where her daughter passed away. And so we're going to go talk to her about what happened. So that will be tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. So, isn't this fun?
It is so fun.
It's really real life, and you guys get to be part of it. So please share this on your page so other people will see it. Maybe be inspired to do something. If you know a business person in town who you think this might work for, just don't pressure them. Just let them know and tell them to get a hold of Jessica. This is an easy way to do this, and but you better. There's a warning that comes with that. Your heart may grow really super big, and you may.
And we're very easy to work with. We're super low.
Oh my gosh, you guys are like.
You can be honest and stuff. We get it.
They're really.
We just want to
really
figure out how
easy.
to make things work.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
For a happier
Thank you.
society.
Yeah, that's what we're all working for. All right, we can do it. All right, you guys, thank you. Share this, okay? All right, I'll talk to you tomorrow. We have a show at Provisions at noon, and then we will be with our friends tomorrow evening. All right, have a good day.